My girlfriend's betrayal, I'm pregnant, by them hows, wed me now, she spat. I said yes. Then a stranger, it's not yours. She froze. Could you ever imagine the person you loved, the one you planned a future with, seeing your deepest, most agonizing pain and thinking, that's how I get what I want? Because that's exactly what Chloe did to me. She used the very worst moment of my life as a blueprint, a twisted manual, to manipulate me for everything she desired. The air in our apartment had a different weight to it back then, almost 4 years into our relationship. It was a late September evening, the kind where the light fades too quickly, when Chloe walked in from work, pale and silent. She didn't say a word, just headed straight for the bathroom and closed the door. When she emerged 20 minutes later, she clutched a pregnancy test, her face a canvas of emotions I'd never seen: shock, fear, something unreadable. I'm pregnant, she whispered. My world stopped. For a fleeting, exhilarating second, pure, unadulterated joy exploded in my chest. A future I'd secretly yearned for, a dream I hadn't dared to vocalize too loudly, suddenly felt real. Cribs, baby names, telling our families, my mind raced, already rearranging every single part of my life for this new person. I asked her how it happened. She mumbled something about being stressed at work, forgetting her birth control pills a couple of times. Honestly, I didn't care. I was just thrilled. I told her we should get married, that we needed a house, that our apartment was far too small. I remember repeating, we're going to be amazing parents, almost like a mantra, trying to cement the reality for both of us. But Chloe didn't react the way I expected. No tears of joy, no laughter. Just an exhausted, distant look. I need some time to process this, she said, before retreating to bed at an impossibly early hour. For the next few days, I floated on air. I researched baby gear, devoured real estate listings, even called my mom to share the amazing news. But Chloe was a ghost in our home. Distant, quiet, her answers clipped and evasive whenever I brought up the pregnancy. I tried to convince myself it was just fear, a normal reaction to such a huge, unplanned change. I gave her space, tried to be supportive, but a strange, unshakable tension began to settle between us. Then, about 2 weeks later, the bleeding started. At first, she dismissed it as normal spotting. But by nightfall, we were in the emergency room. I'll never forget the doctor's face as he turned the ultrasound screen away. His voice was gentle, almost painfully so, when he said, "I'm sorry, but there's no heartbeat." Just like that, it was over. Our baby was gone. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and ripped out every ounce of hope, every future dream. I cried in that sterile room, harder than I ever had in my life. Chloe cried too, beside me. But even through my own shattering grief, something felt off. Her tears seemed performative. Like she was doing what was expected, not truly experiencing the profound, gut-wrenching devastation that had consumed me. We returned home in a stunned silence. For weeks, I was a mess, unable to focus, barely eating. My mind replayed all the milestones that would never happen: first steps, first words, teaching them to ride a bike. All gone, before they even began. Chloe seemed sad, yes, but not broken like I was. And within a month, she was acting completely normal again, as if the loss of our child had never even happened. When I cautiously brought up the idea of trying again someday, she shut me down instantly. "I don't think I'm ready for that, Daniel," she said, shrugging when I asked when she might be. We'd talked about getting married before, nothing firm, but it was there. After the miscarriage, I thought it might be a way to heal, to hold on to us. But she insisted we both needed time to process, and I was too emotionally raw to argue. What I didn't realize then, what I couldn't have possibly known, was that while I was trapped in a suffocating shroud of grief, Chloe was watching me. Studying me. She saw how easily I'd been willing to uproot my life, how desperate I was to buy a house, to marry her, to give her everything because of a baby. And somewhere in the dark corners of her mind, as I fell apart, a twisted plan began to form. She understood, a pregnancy, real or not, was the ultimate lever. The key to getting everything she wanted from me. And she learned exactly how to turn it. I spent months trying to rebuild myself, going to therapy, leaning on friends. But Chloe moved on at an astonishing pace, almost untouched. Now, I understand why. She wasn't processing grief, she was taking notes, charting her next move, figuring out how to weaponize my most profound vulnerability. And the worst part? I never saw it coming until it was almost too late, until she was on the cusp of getting everything, and I was on the brink of losing myself entirely. Then, about 7 months after the miscarriage, just as I was finally starting to feel like myself again, Chloe dropped another bombshell. "I'm pregnant again," she announced. This time, her face wasn't scared, it was serious, almost determined. Like she'd made peace with some grand, secret decision. My first instinct was a visceral jolt of caution. I couldn't go through that pain again. But when I looked into her eyes, saw what I thought were genuine tears, my defenses crumbled. Maybe, just maybe, this was our second chance. I asked if she was sure. She nodded, claiming 3 positive tests. And how it happened? She'd been thinking about our loss, she said, and decided she didn't want to live with regret. So, she'd stopped taking birth control months ago, without telling me, because she wanted it to be a surprise. I should have questioned that. Why keep something so huge from me after everything? But instead, I just hugged her, promising everything would be different. This was our second chance. The next few days were beautiful. We told our families, who were thrilled but also understandably nervous. Chloe seemed more engaged, more excited this time, like she genuinely wanted to be a mother. But then, things subtly shifted. She started talking about the wedding, not in a dreamy, future-planning way, but with a strange, urgent insistence. "A baby needs stability," she'd say. "I need to know we're truly committed." I agreed, and she pushed for a date within 2 months. It felt insanely rushed, but I dismissed it as nesting anxiety. Then came the house. Oh, the house. This is where a cold, creeping dread began to coil in my gut. We were sitting at the kitchen table one night, scrolling through listings. She kept pointing to places far beyond our budget, for bedrooms, huge yards, expensive neighborhoods. When I gently reminded her we couldn't afford that right now, she went quiet. Then, she suggested using my savings for the down payment. I told her my savings were for our future. She smiled, saying, "This was our future." And then, she added the words that made my stomach absolutely churn: "The house should be in my name, though. Just to be safe." Safe? I asked her what she meant. She explained, with a calm, almost rehearsed composure, that if something happened to me, God forbid, she wanted to ensure she and the baby would be protected. Security, no matter what happened between us. I sat there, trying to process it. On the surface, it almost made sense. People plan for worst-case scenarios. But it felt fundamentally wrong. It felt like she was planning for a future where I wasn't even part of the picture, just a wallet that might disappear. I told her I needed time to think. She didn't push, just kissed my cheek, told me to take my time, but added, "We need to decide soon, though. I'm already 8 weeks along, so we should get moving." Over the next few weeks, the house became a constant refrain, always framed as protection. She piled on more conditions, wedding before closing, adding her to my bank accounts just in case of emergencies. I felt this suffocating pressure, like I was being backed into a corner, every conversation a step deeper into a trap I couldn't quite see. But every time I voiced a concern, she'd get emotional, asking if I didn't want this family, or saying she just needed to feel secure after what we'd been through. And I, guilt-ridden, would back down, questioning my own motives. The turning point shattered my world about 3 weeks after her announcement. I came home early from work, having forgotten my laptop. As I walked down the hall, I heard Chloe's voice from our bedroom, the door ajar. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I swear, but my name caught my attention, and something in her tone made me freeze. And what I heard next, my blood ran cold. She was talking to her friend, Sarah. I heard her say that I had been ready to give her everything last time, the house, the ring, all of it. And then we lost the baby, and everything just stopped, she said. All the plans disappeared. There was a pause, Sarah must have said something, and then Chloe laughed. An actual, chilling laugh. This time, she continued, I'm not leaving anything to chance. Once the house is in my name and we're married, I'll figure out the rest. I stood there, frozen, my heart hammering against my ribs. I tried to rationalize it, to find any other explanation, but it was useless. Then Chloe uttered the words that atomized everything I thought I knew about her. She told Sarah that I would never know the truth. And even if things didn't work out down the line, at least she'd have the house. At least she'd have something to show for all of this. I quietly backed out of the apartment, walked to my car, and just sat there for an hour, numb. The pieces clicked into place, forming the most horrifying picture. Her sudden about-face on having kids. The urgency for the wedding and the house. Her insistence on everything being in her name. And most damningly, the fact that I had never, ever seen any proof of this pregnancy beyond her word. No doctor's appointment. No ultrasound. Not even the positive pregnancy test she claimed to have taken. I had simply believed her. Because why wouldn't I? After everything, why would she lie about something so sacred? That night, I walked back into the apartment and played the part of the loving, excited future father. I kissed her hello, asked about her day, cooked dinner. I said nothing about what I'd heard. Because I needed to be sure. I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Over the next few days, I paid attention to all the things I'd dismissed before. No morning sickness, even though she was supposedly almost 12 weeks along. She was still drinking coffee every morning, something she'd completely cut out during the first pregnancy due to nausea. Her body hadn't changed, not even a little. I suggested we go to her next doctor's appointment together. She made an excuse about her doctor being booked for weeks. When I offered to call and add myself to the appointment, she got defensive, calling me controlling, demanding space for her medical care. It was then. With absolute, sickening certainty, I knew. There was no baby. Chloe had watched my desperation during the first pregnancy, my willingness to give her everything, and she'd decided to weaponize it. She had watched me grieve, studied every one of my reactions, and meticulously crafted a plan to get exactly what she wanted, a house in her name, financial security, a wedding, all on her terms, all with my money, and with zero intention of actually having a child. The worst part wasn't the lie itself. It was the crushing realization that the person I had loved and trusted for 4 years had looked at my raw, genuine devastation over losing a child and thought, this is my opportunity. This is the key to everything. I felt sick. I felt profoundly betrayed. But most of all, I felt utterly stupid for not seeing it sooner. For being so desperate to believe in the fairy tale, so eager for a second chance at fatherhood, that I'd ignored every single blaring red flag. Now I had a choice. Confront her immediately and watch her scramble. Or play along, let her think her plan was perfectly executed, and see just how far she was willing to take this monstrous lie, how deep the betrayal actually went. After what she'd done, after how she'd twisted the worst moment of my life against me, I wanted to see her walk right up to the finish line before I pulled the rug out from under her. For the next 2 weeks, I played the role of excited future father better than I ever had. I asked about baby names, showed her house listings, even suggested nursery furniture shopping. And every single time, I watched her lie straight to my face, with a smile. Knowing the truth changed everything. Every time Chloe placed a hand on her stomach and talked about the baby growing, every elaborate story about morning sickness or cravings, I saw right through it. What truly shocked me wasn't just that she was lying, but how good she was at it. The lies flowed so easily, so naturally, like she'd been practicing them for years. I started documenting everything in secret. Detailed notes on my phone, every evasive answer, every refusal to let me come to an appointment, every inconsistency in her story. I knew that when this exploded, I would need concrete proof that I wasn't crazy, that this wasn't paranoia. One night, about a week before we were supposed to meet with Mr. Harrison, the real estate agent, she brought up the mortgage paperwork. She said she'd already filled out most of it, listing herself as the sole owner on the title and me as a co-borrower on the mortgage. Meaning, legally, I'd be responsible for paying for a house I wouldn't own. When I pointed this out, she had a ready explanation about tax purposes, some vague financial reason she couldn't quite articulate. I feigned agreement, telling her it sounded fine. The relief that washed over her face was almost sad, as if she'd expected a fight but was thrilled I was still playing along. I had zero intention of signing anything, but I wanted to see how far she'd push. A few days later, she suggested we meet Mr. Harrison to discuss options. I agreed immediately, even offered to take the afternoon off work, which seemed to genuinely delight her. The morning of the meeting, I went to my bank. I didn't move money or close accounts, I just wanted to understand what would happen if Chloe did gain access to my savings. The banker assured me that without my explicit written consent and signature, she couldn't touch a dollar. A small, but crucial, peace of mind. When I arrived at Mr. Harrison's office, Chloe was already there, brimming with excitement, clutching a folder of printouts and paint samples. She looked like she was about to win the lottery. We sat down, and Mr. Harrison began his spiel about down payments, interest rates, closing costs. Chloe nodded enthusiastically, squeezing my hand occasionally, playing the perfect picture of our united front. Then Mr. Harrison asked about our timeline. As fast as possible, Chloe declared, we're expecting a baby and need to be settled. I watched Mr. Harrison's face light up with congratulations, while I sat there, feeling nothing but cold, brutal clarity. About 30 minutes into the meeting, Mr. Harrison excused himself to print some documents. The moment the door closed, I turned to Chloe. I need to show you something, I said, my voice eerily calm. Her expression shifted from confused to curious, perhaps a flicker of nervousness. I pulled out my phone, but it wasn't a voice recording she might have expected. I opened a folder of screenshots. See, after I overheard that phone call with Sarah, I'd waited for Chloe to leave the apartment. I'd gone through her laptop, which she always left open. And there it was. Everything. The messages between her and Sarah, detailing this entire scheme. Conversations about how to handle me, how to ensure I stayed convinced. Even a draft text, unsent, where she joked about how easy it was to manipulate someone who actually wanted to be a father. I had screenshot every single incriminating piece of evidence, backed it up to my cloud. And now, I scrolled through them, message after message, as the color drained from Chloe's face. Her face went from pale to absolutely horrified. For 10 solid seconds, she just sat there, staring at my phone as if it were a weapon, as if her entire world was collapsing. She tried to speak, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly, before finally sputtering that I was taking it out of context, that Sarah had given her bad advice, that she was just venting. I let her talk, watched her stumble through pathetic excuses, desperately trying to reconstruct some reality where she wasn't the villain. When she finally ran out of words, I asked one simple question, a question I already knew the answer to. Are you actually pregnant? She looked at me with wide, desperate eyes. Of course I am, she cried, indignant. How dare you even ask me that? I told her to prove it. Right now. Call her doctor. Have them send the ultrasound photos. Any medical documentation. Anything that proved this nightmare was real. Chloe's face crumbled. The tears came then, real tears this time. I did it because you wouldn't commit otherwise, Daniel, she sobbed. I was scared of losing everything. And I realized, with a sickening lurch, that in her twisted mind, she had actually justified this. Convinced herself that manipulating me was necessary, that faking a pregnancy was just a tool to get what she deserved. I stood up. Mr. Harrison had just walked back in, looking utterly confused and uncomfortable. "We won't be needing your services after all, Mr. Harrison," I said, my voice steady. "There's been a misunderstanding. We need to leave." Chloe grabbed my arm, her grip desperate, begging me not to do this, not to throw away our future over a misunderstanding. I looked at her, truly looked at this woman I'd spent 4 years of my life with, this person I'd been ready to marry, to build a family with. "I lost a child, Chloe," I said, my voice raw but firm. "I mourned a baby that I loved. And you saw that as an opportunity." She tried to argue, claiming her grief was just as real. But we both knew that was a lie. Her grief had lasted a month, mine had nearly destroyed me for half a year. I walked out of that office. Chloe followed me into the parking lot, still crying, still trying to convince me we could work through it, that therapy could fix it, that she'd do anything if I'd just give her another chance. I got in my car. She stood at the driver's side window, shouting that I was throwing away our future, that everything she'd done was out of love, for our security. I rolled down the window just enough. "There is no future anymore, Chloe," I told her, my voice cold and flat. "Not for us. I refuse to build a life on top of a lie this massive, this calculated." She asked where I was going. "I'm going home to pack your things," I said. "You have until the end of the week to find somewhere else to stay." The look on her face was pure, unadulterated shock. She genuinely believed that even after being caught red-handed, I would somehow forgive her, and we'd just move on like nothing happened. Over the next few days, Chloe tried everything. Calls, texts, showing up at my apartment at odd hours. She even got her mom involved, who called me to say I was being too harsh, that young couples make mistakes. But I didn't budge. I could have forgiven a lot of things. People lie, people make mistakes. But not this. Never this. Not using the worst pain of my life as a blueprint for manipulation, not faking a pregnancy, and planning to fake another miscarriage. Just to secure a house and a wedding ring. About a week later, I got a text from Sarah, Chloe's friend, apologizing for her part, claiming she'd told Chloe from the beginning that the plan was wrong. She said Chloe had insisted I'd never find out, that I was too trusting and too desperate to be a father to ever question her. I didn't respond. My anger had faded into something colder, clearer, a deep understanding that I had dodged an absolute catastrophe. I spent the next few months rebuilding my life, for the second time in a year. But this time, it was different. I wasn't mourning a child. I was mourning the person I'd thought Chloe was, accepting that she'd never actually existed, that the woman I'd loved had always been partially a fiction. Looking back now, I'm profoundly grateful I overheard that phone call. Grateful I went through her messages. Grateful I didn't sign those papers. Because if I hadn't, I'd probably be sitting in a house I didn't own, married to someone who saw me as nothing more than a means to an end, wondering why I felt so empty and trapped. And the scariest part? I would have never known why. I would have spent years trying to fix something that was broken from the very beginning. I'm still processing this level of calculated cruelty. If this happened to you, what would your very first move be? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more real stories.